it's Simon here. Well, that was the way my mum named me when I was born. But then a friend of mine called Jesus came along and he called me Peter, which means rocky, really dependable. I'm that sort of a guy, you know. I want to tell you a story about what happened the other night. Just let me put my fish away. There we go. Now, the other evening, Jesus, plus a few of his friends, decided to go out on the lake. Well, I say a lake, but actually, we call it the Sea of Galilee because it's huge. It's 8 miles wide and it's surrounded by big, big hills. Anyway, we set off across the lake and we knew this lake very well because we'd grown up fishing there. My family had been in the fishing business for yonks. So, off we go. Lovely evening, sun just setting, but then just over the horizon we could see these dark clouds coming. Now we weren't worried because we know that sort of thing can happen from time to time on the Sea of Galilee. Storm rolls in, then rolls off, and we carry on. Anyway, this was different. Storm came in, down came the raindrops, pitter-patter, 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 and then the wind, which blew, and my goodness, let me tell you, it blew, and suddenly the boat was rocking from side to side, and so we had to haul in the sail, we had to cling on to the ropes, and still the boat was rocking. And you know what? We thought we were done for. We were convinced the boat was going to capsize, we'd all be thrown into the sea, and we'd drown. So we were really, really frightened. But here's the strange thing. While all this was going on, do you know what Jesus was doing? Yeah, you may have guessed, because you may have heard the story before. But he was asleep right in the back of the boat, sleeping just like a baby, snoring away, comfortable as anything. Well, we were just desperate. So we woke him. We said, Jesus, wake up, don't you care? And he woke up. And you'll never guess what happened next. He stood up and he said, be still. And it was. The rain stopped, the wind died down, the sun came out, and even more amazingly, the sea just suddenly was still, as if it was just a beautiful sunny day. Well, I tell you, we were amazed. I mean, we knew he was a special teacher, and we listened to what he had to say really keenly, but to do that, to say to a storm of that fierceness, stop, and it stopped, we were amazed. And actually, we were also a little bit scared. And the question that we posed to each other, we asked each other, who is this man, Jesus? Really, who is he?
All right, well, we've met Simon Peter talking about how great Jesus is, and now we're going to sing about him. If you know the actions at home, please do them as you sing along.
Hands. story is found in the book of Mark, chapter 4, and starting at verse 35. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him."
Well, it's an amazing story, isn't it? Incredible. Look at the question in verse 40 that Jesus asks the disciples. He says, "Do you still have no faith?" We've thought about Peter, well, rather we've heard from him. And remember his name? Rocky. Peter felt that he could handle anything, but he couldn't handle this storm. But in this story, Jesus can handle the storm. And at the moment in our world, it feels there's a massive storm going on and it all feels out of control. It feels like this coronavirus is so big. In fact, there's nothing bigger than this at the moment. And maybe we might be tempted to think, Jesus can't handle that. But this story assures us that Jesus can handle any storm. Now, he may handle it in ways different than we would expect, but if we trust him, then we don't need to be afraid of the future. To be trusting Jesus is to be in the safest place anywhere. Now I've got a few questions for Pathfinders. I'd like you to think about this. The interesting thing about Mark is he's the shortest gospel out of the four there is. So when he mentions details, they must be really, really important. So let's think about some of the details in this passage that we've just thought about. For example, look at verse 36. Why do you think he mentions other boats? Look at verse 38. What does Jesus being asleep tell us about his state of mind? Well, think about verse 39 where we read that the storm was completely stopped and the waves became completely calm. You know, there are some people that suggest that Jesus was a bit of a clever magician and he could see that the weather was changing, and so he decided to time his "be still" remark just for when the storm would blow over. But the problem is, you don't stop a sea that's been whipped up by strong winds just like that, do you? And then look at verse 40. There's something very, very surprising about the way the disciples react. What is it? And then look at verse 41, the question they ask, who is this man? What is it, do you think, the disciples are struggling with? Think about what they know about Jesus and think about what he's just done. Who else, do you think, could control nature? And it may help you to look at Psalm 107 and verses 23 to 32, because Jesus' followers would have known that. They'd have heard it many times read out to them from scrolls. And so they'd have been using that psalm as one of the things to answer their question, who is this man? So I hope you have a good time with this passage with Mum and Dad Pathfinders. Thank you.